But sometimes the fact that a line is quotable renders it to misunderstanding. This happens, I think, because we tend to extract it, to take it out of its context, and then forget the context, and then use the line as though it were an entirely discrete thought. So this morning I want to point out and caution against two such misunderstandings. First, get out your reading, find verse 31 in there. It's in the big paragraph at the bottom, I think. One of our VBS songs this summer was based upon this famous line. It was actually verse 31b. The B, when you see that, refers to the second half of the verse. That line is, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Now, those who wrote our VBS music, they set this to some catchy little earworm with a vaguely Jamaican sound. Like those parents, you're like nodding your head, right? You know, like, if God is for us, who can be? You had to do this little like who? The shaking thing. It was ridiculous. And that was not the ridiculous thing that made my wife get drawn off sides by it, drove Stephanie up the wall, this song. And it wasn't the tune or the absurdity of the motion. So the ridiculous thing that got her up the wall, drove her nuts, was the sentiment. The verse in the song felt like it had largely been separated from the surrounding context, like someone had cut it out and made a song about it, which I guess is exactly what happened. And as a standalone sentiment, it doesn't exactly ring true to our experience of life, does it? At one point, after another rousing trip at 9 a.m. through the who can be against this thing, Stephanie leaned over to me, like 100 little kids running around the Great Hall. Stephanie leans over to me and she whispered, "Everybody. The correct answer is everybody. What are we teaching our kids? They're going to grow up and they're going to find out the answer is everybody." Wow, that's a lot for 9 in the morning. But if you read the whole passage there, you realize that Paul's point is actually quite similar to Stephanie's objection. Right? Everybody may be against you, but even then, you cannot be taken away from God's love. I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord. But think about that list of things that can be against you. Death, pretty obviously. Life, be stacked against you. Angels, presumably the bad ones. Rulers, no comment. Things present, you can probably name those, right? Things yet to come. Can't name them, but you can fear them, certainly, abstractly. Powers, heights, depth, anything else in all creation. That's a pretty full list. That's everybody. Those things can hurt, they can maim, they can kill, but they cannot separate us from God. So that's the first misunderstanding. God does not make it, despite the VBS song to the contrary, does not make it so our lives are without obstacle or without struggle or pain or suffering. That is not what Paul meant when he wrote, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" The continued existence of these bad things and our experience of them leads me to the second misunderstanding I want to address. This is the sort of misunderstanding that leads to saccharine conversations in the funeral parlor. It leads to unhelpful Facebook posts or comments, even though the person was really trying to be supportive. And this misunderstanding leads people to believe that Christians are complete idiots. And I do not approve of that particular outcome. So in verse 28 of chapter 8 of his letter to the Romans, Paul of Tarsus wrote this: "We know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose." It's a beautiful line. It's one of the most poetic things Paul penned. I think his English teacher or his Greek teacher, I guess, should be very proud. But somehow it's often been taken to mean that all things are good. That even when tragedy strikes, it's somehow good. In the funeral parlor, this can sound like, God needed another angel in heaven. Or on Facebook, after posting about a job loss, it sounds like, just try and remember this is all part of God's plan. Talking this way turns Christians into insufferable Pollyannas, just rushing right past or running right over people's pain on a quest to call everything good. And the justification of this is that nothing happens apart from God's will. There's all this language in this passage about foreknowledge and predestination, right? So if something happens, God must have willed it, and if God willed it, it must be good. And from there, logically, you're going to be calling the Holocaust good real fast. Now, I can only preach one sermon this morning, so I don't want to get too caught up in preaching about the nature of God's will and the existence of evil. But just look at the text. Paul simply does not say, we know that there is good in all things for those who love God. Being a Christian does not actually require the confession that what is bad is good. In centuries past, generations of the smartest human beings on the planet spent a lot of their waking hours searching for something called the philosopher's stone. The philosopher's stone is central to the pseudoscience of alchemy. And the idea was that the philosopher's stone was capable of transmuting base metals, like mercury or lead, into gold. Obviously, obtaining the philosopher's stone held the potential to make one enormously rich and enormously powerful. Today, we know the philosopher's stone cannot exist. You would be crazy to believe that you could discover the philosopher's stone. A person who believed that lead could be transformed into gold would be a person who is nuts, or at least a person to whom I would like to offer some oceanfront property in Arizona. Right? Christianity is not a spiritual philosopher's stone. Christianity is not the transmutation of bad into good. Christianity is the redemption of bad by good. Redemption is different than transmutation. When Paul says all things work together for good for those who love God, what he means is that God can make all things, good things and bad things, work together for good. Not that bad things aren't bad. It's important to be clear about this point. All the bad things in the world should get to us. They should rile us up. They should break our hearts. They should make us sad. They should move us to tears. We should stand up and fight them. We should try and keep them from happening. We should be a voice for justice and a passionate partisan on the side of good. And then, when bad still happens, we should pray to God to use it for good, to redeem it. At church this week, as a church this week, we experienced, if not a bad thing, at least a thing that has some negative qualities to it. Father Mike is leaving St. Andrews. Now, to apply this verse, we know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. To our situation doesn't require that we don't feel bad or feel sad about his leaving. St. Andrews, we love God. We are called according to his purpose. And this is one of the all things in Paul's line. God can use it to work for good. I firmly believe he will, because God is awesome. But it will still be hard. It will still be sad. Now, I want to end with an example to help you see how this works, give you a visual image. So punching people, right? Punching people is bad. Can we agree on that this morning? Great. All right, punching people is bad. Now let's imagine I punch someone in the face. Hey, actually, Mo, come on up here. I'd like to punch Mo in the face. Come on up, Mo. All right. So let's say that Mo, just come on right here. Let's say that Mo is just standing here, and I just punch him in the face. Now, Mo could say, oh gosh, that felt really good. Please do it again. Right? He could say that, but you saw how much I hurt him, right? That was bad. It would not be true to call it good. He could say that it was good, it just wouldn't be true. Calling that punch good would be a lie. But could a person take my punch, which, lest you forget what we're dealing with here, is bad and meant for evil, right? Could a person take that punch and use it for their own advantage? Could they make a bad thing work for their good thing? Again, let's say Mo is just standing here, and I just punch him in the face. Ah! Ah! God is so good that he can take the stuff that is bad and hurtful and use it for his purposes, like Mo. This is the central story of our salvation, right? Like, on the cross, God takes a sucker punch from the devil. And the execution of Jesus Christ was a bad, evil thing, right? It was meant for bad and meant for evil. And God used that to work for good for those who love God. Now, I'm going to get an Advil here in a minute. The devil did not have that option available to him on Easter Sunday when God used that bad thing for good. So don't misunderstand our readings this morning. Everybody can be against you, and that can be bad. But God is more than all that, much more, and he can use it all for good. Praise the Lord. Amen.